What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and did I say Christ or Chris?
Chris.
I said Christ, yeah. And I'm joined by the best in the business, Jurgen. What is up, my man?
Nothing much. I'm excited for another night, and we got saved, boys. We got saved by some big news.
We did, and I guess Dame, how are you?
I'm doing good. It could be better with no snow, but it is what it is.
Just complaints all the time. Just complaints.
Right.
Now, bipolar weather. It's happening every week. But anyway, we're not a weather broadcast. We're a sports analyst page. I don't even know what we are, to be honest. We just talk about sports. We just yap. And luckily for us, this week was going to be dried of the yaps, but movement occurred literally in the past 24 hours. So we got hit with the yaps again, and we're going to be yapping about sports. We got baseball news, we got football news, and we decided to, milk that basketball news because that's what we like to do here. So gains viewership. So pretty diverse in terms of just all sports. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. But before I get onto the rundown, Jurgen, any hockey updates?
So nothing at the moment. The season is trying to progress the best they can. Quite a few teams have been dealing with games getting canceled as of late. Similar to the teams that I probably mentioned last time. Philadelphia had some issues this week, if I'm not mistaken, or last week with games getting canceled. Buffalo has been like the main team recently. I think last week Vegas, it's just a lot of teams are dealing with a lot of games canceling. It's really starting to create some discussion. What is the NHL going to do to solve this? Because what they're trying to do is trying to have teams make up games, but just recently we had 7 games in a row where the St. Louis and Coyotes played each other. So that's not exactly a formula that I'm sure they want to go forward with. Will they have to? That's a wait-and-see situation, but there's that. In terms of performers, I'm personally excited this weekend. The Lake Tahoe outdoor games are happening, even though there will be no fans. The NHL released pictures today. Beautiful-looking rink out at Lake Tahoe, so I think it'll be a very nice viewing experience for people. I know the Colorado Avalanche and Vegas Golden Knights are one of the games happening there. And I believe Philadelphia and Boston, if I'm not mistaken, is the other one happening there this weekend. So, the NHL is still getting that done to an extent. Aside from that, season is progressing. Relatively speaking, teams are still, the power structure is relatively the same. Toronto has actually moved up to the top of the Canadian division. They've been handling business lately. Edmonton is slowly surging here and there. Boston's still doing their thing. The Tampa Bay Lightning have looked outstanding. They're looking like the defending champions are looking like they have a strong case at repeating this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. We got a couple surprises here and there. Some young teams have had some nice performances recently. I think the Blackhawks are the most surprising. Everyone had them dead to right in the preseason, myself included. They just had no goaltending. And wildly enough, a young goaltender that they signed, I believe it was this offseason, if not last, random kid, Finnish, I believe, and he's just been going on. He is easily the best goalie on that team right now, and he has led them to, I want to say as of this recording, they're either third or tied for third or fourth in the division, which means that they are in the playoff hunt as of now, and no one would have expected that 15 or so games in, the Blackhawks would have been contending for a playoff spot. So if you're Chicago, you're feeling good about that right now.
All right. Solid updates as always by our hockey consigliere, Jurg. And I'm pretty sure as the season progresses, you'll update us on that more. But yeah, that's it for our NHL update. Rundown for this week. We got MLB news. We got a record-breaking extension, and then we also have a trade that occurred in the NFL, and then we're going to talk about some trades that we think might occur in the NBA. But to start off, we'll begin with the record-breaking deal that occurred last night, guys. Fernando Tatis Jr. re-signs with the San Diego Padres for 14 years, $340 million. Now, guys, this caused quite a reaction on social media, especially from Dame. I just saw holy shit in the group chat. So, guys, thoughts, reactions, considerations, comments, concerns. Let's start off with Dame.
This deal is kind of structured differently. It's not every year that he gets paid the same amount. So for the first 4 years, it's a 4-year deal for $34 million. and then after that, it's the next 10 years for 306. So at first, I know a lot of people were like, I think it was like 24 million per year as a annual average value of the deal. But actually, first 4 years is going to be less than $10 million per year. And then 10 years after, he will be getting paid $30 million a year, which a lot of these star players are getting paid. So it's a good deal for him. But honestly, I think it's a good deal for both sides. But at the same time, both sides, there's a lot of risk to as well. Starting off with Tatis, it's obviously a good deal because this guy's a 22-year-old budding superstar. He had only 1 year production. He locked himself in for guaranteed $340 million for his career. He could have one good year like he just had and then just be terrible for the rest of his career. And no matter what, he'll be guaranteed to make $340 million in his career, which is absolutely insane. But the risk with him is that every year, obviously with all sports, every year the top guy gets paid more and more and more. Baseball, you saw Garrett Cole last offseason became the highest paid pitcher in the league. Now this season, Trevor Bauer topped him. It's the same thing in every sport. In football, you see with quarterbacks. Every quarterback that signs the extension, the next one has to top it. So that's the risk you have with a guy like Tatis signing an extension this early, because he'd be in free agency, I think, in 4 or 5 years, and by then who knows what the market would be. He could be paid, if he plays like he was playing, he could be getting paid $45 million a year. A $300 million contract could be a maybe $450 million contract. So that's the risk on his side. On the Padres side, it's a win because if Tatis does pan out the way he played last season or anything relatively close, you get an absolute steal for the first 4 years, less than $10 million a year. And then even for $30 million a year in 10 years or 7 years, it's an absolute steal because, like I said, the market for these top players goes up and up every single year because every player is trying to top the last guy that got paid. So that's a win for them because they're getting good value there. But the risk is, like I said, he only had 1 year production. So say he gets hurt or say he doesn't live up to expectations, like in 4 years, you got to pay a guy $30 million a year for what? For not playing up to expectations? Like, there's always a risk there. But for both, I personally think he's going to be a superstar and he's going to keep it up. So I see it as a win for both these parties.
Someone's dying in the back from cops. All right, go ahead.
You live by the precinct, so
I'm in my room. I'm near the backyard. Someone's got.
I apologize, boys. Ambulances like driving by from.
Someone got the pigs around them. But anyway, go ahead, Jurg.
So to Dame's point with this deal, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad between both sides, and it all really has to do with the idea of potential. If you're Fernando Tatis, like as of right now, this is absolutely an amazing deal for you. You're guaranteeing yourself generational wealth for the rest of your lifetime, and then for your own children's lifetime, and even probably your children's children, depending on what he does with it. And if he gains more advertising money, of course, he's going to be on the cover of this year's MLB The Show game. Like he is becoming the next in line of superstars in Major League Baseball. And from that perspective, when you consider a guy like that inking a deal this early, I like it just because very rarely do these young guys get to have this chance, you know? Like in recent years, Tatis and Ronald Acuna on the Atlanta Braves, like their contracts are outliers. Not every young player that has this kind of run gets paid like this. Teams love keeping their guys under a controlled salary number in order to cut costs. And that's one of my gripes with Major League Baseball. So I got to give big ups to the Padres for being willing to do that for their guy here, number one. And number two, I think like Dame said, this could potentially be a great deal for the Padres because like he said, in 4 to 5 years time, when he finally is making $30 million, if Fernando Tatis Jr. is becoming what we expect him to become, and he becomes a superstar player in this league, he is a great defensive player and an offensive player. Like Dame said, in his career, he's played 143 games. So that's around a season's worth of games. Now, if you're projecting that for what he could do in his career, give or take, in the first 143 games of his career, he has 39 home runs and 98 RBI, a batting average of just over 300, slugging percentage of .582, and an OPS of 956. Average that out to a full 162, his numbers would go up to 111 RBI and 44 home runs, depending on things. So what you potentially locked up if he lives up to everything. Is a guy that's going to be about 30 to 40 home runs every year guaranteed, and most likely 100 RBI because of how good he is hitting the ball. Like, he is just a supremely talented player. Like I said, I'm very happy he got this deal. And there's a chance that a few years from now, we will actually be looking at that contract like, dang, Padres got him at a steal. So that's the unique thing about signing this deal long term. And I think for Tatis, at the end of the day, he probably saw the Last Dance documentary, and he saw what happened to Scottie Pippen. He said, like, all right, if I'm going to sign for big money, I'm going to make sure I get the right kind of money. And he probably looked at Mahomes as like, all right, that dude got paid big. He evaluated everything. Is like, all right, let's get to this number. Well, his agent probably did that part, but they said, let's get to this number. They got to the number. 14 years, $340 million.
Collect that bread, brother. But he's in Cali, so those taxes are going to wreck him. But, Dame, any final thoughts?
Final thought is just that first 4 years for $34 million really shocked me, because now it gives the Padres a lot of flexibility going forward for these next 4 years, because Tatis is getting paid less than $10 million a year. So It gives them a lot of flexibility there. So that's something to watch out for.
They gave themselves what I think they gave themselves, and I think Dame would agree here, is they gave themselves a first 4 years of Tatis contract window and then last 10 years window. Like, if they're going to sign other big name, big money free agents, rarely expect any of them to have longer than anywhere from 3 to 4 year deals, depending on when they sign them. Because the Padres, let's remember, while they may be in California, they haven't always been known as a big money spending team, et cetera, et cetera. So they are likely they're going to be very specific with the books from now on in terms of, all right, the first 4 years we could spend this amount. The next 10 years we need to manage money a lot better, depending on what prospects do well, what free agents could come to attention. If Manny Machado continues to live up to his deal, or if he doesn't, could they move that? Like, it's just a whole myriad of factors that now Tatis's deal, that is the beacon for the organization on what they can do going forward in what year.
I mean, look, when I guess a small, quote-unquote, small market team is making big moves like this, I think it's good for everyone, to be honest. So, yeah, that'll be that. Now we're moving on to NFL news. Now, luckily for us, this was announced this morning, right?
Yep.
Yeah, this was, and we're recording on Thursday. This will be released Friday. Carson Wentz traded to the Indiana Colts for a package of a 2021 third-round draft pick and a conditional 2022 second-round draft pick that could turn to a first-rounder. I will let one of you guys explain what that is. But, yeah, guys, Carson Wentz finally gets traded, and he goes to a team that I think generally a lot of people were expecting him to go to. Yeah, Jurg, I want to start off with you. What do we think about the trade? What do we think about the move for Carson? What do we think about the fit for Carson Wentz? What do we think about the package that the Eagles got?
So about this, if you're talking about the package, like, here's the thing, like, this is actually a pretty, I think, honestly, despite what the reports the Eagles were putting out last week, that they wanted a Matthew Stafford type deal for Carson, they were never going to get that. We all know it. Sports fans that have at least a handful of brain cells know it. Eagles fans knew it. They were never going to get 2 first-round picks back for Carson Wentz. So the fact that they got a conditional pick that could turn into a first-round pick is actually not too bad. For those wondering what the condition is, if Wentz plays 75% of, I guess, snaps, or it wouldn't be games, it would likely be a snap count kind of thing. If he plays 75% of his snaps this season, if he plays 70% of those snaps and the Colts make the playoffs, either combination there, that pick gets upgraded to a first-round pick in, I believe, the 2022 draft. So, for that, a third and a first, or even if not, a third and a second is pretty good for a guy who, let's be honest, got broken in Philly. And I mean every way, physically, mentally, spiritually, because he's that kind of guy. Like, it just became such a bad situation there. You knew it was an issue where even when they fired Doug Peterson, he was still like, I don't care. I don't want to be here anymore. Like, at that point, we all knew it was irreparable. So they did the smart thing. They didn't try to risk this. They didn't try to put Nick Sirianni in a more difficult of a position than he's already shown that he can handle with so far. They said, all right, we'll trade Carson. We'll try to figure this out. Will they go ahead with Jalen Hurts or not? That's something we'll see within the coming weeks and months. But for now, we see Carson Wentz go to the Indianapolis Colts. I'll say automatically for the Colts, This is pretty solid, considering that you likely would have had to given up more for a Derek Carr type, because I think the Raiders would have maybe wanted a first this year or a guaranteed first and maybe a second even. This technically by trade value, draft capital standards is it's obviously better. And I think Carson Wentz, we've seen at his best what he could do. And what happened at his best? What was the situation around him? Frank Reich was on the Eagles staff when they made it to the Super Bowl. Guess who happens to be the Colts head coach? Frank Reich. The defense in Philly was pretty good for a while, and they're pretty good right now. No, not them. They were pretty good. Guess what? The Colts defense is pretty good right now with Buckner and Darius Leonard as the leaders there. The offensive line was outstanding in Philadelphia. They supplanted Dallas for having the best offensive line in that division. Guess what? The Colts have a pretty strong offensive line led by Quentin Nelson, who everyone knows is probably the best guard in the league. If not, he's number 2, but I don't see a guard better than him. And then the receiving core and the running back group. Taylor and Hines are a great duo that play well off each other. Taylor mainly the bell cow back, the runner. Hines is the guy that can really catch passes more, so they have a good diversity there. And the skill position crew that they have. I forget if his last name is Pitts or Pittman, the kid they have there, Pascal, and T.Y. Hilton. You know what the key will be is if they're not injured, which is what Wentz has had to deal with every single season since the team won the Super Bowl. It's not just his own injuries. Every single year, his key weapons got injured. If I'm not mistaken, in the 2019 season, at one point, didn't they have to switch a running back to a receiver, or they only had one active wide receiver in the lineup that regularly played receiver? Like, it was something ridiculous like that, to the point where they were literally going into the local Burger King and getting the cashiers to go out there and try out a receiver. That's how bad it was getting in Philly with injuries. So now he gets to go to an organization, the coach that he had the most success with there. Top 10 caliber defense there. Two-headed running attack there. Receiving core there. Tight ends, pretty good tight end group in Indy too. And Chris Ballard is a phenomenal GM that he... Now, for the next 3 years, I'm not going to question any move he makes, because he has earned that with how he's handled building up this team the last couple of years. So I give both sides somewhat of a win here. If you're going to force me to lean to something, I'm going to give a slight edge to the Colts, because they have the situation where Wentz can flourish again.
So I see it as a win on both sides as well. For the Eagles, they just had to get rid of Wentz, not only for the contract, but he was a big locker room problem from that's what reports were saying. So to get rid of him was a win just off that. And then they got a 3rd-round pick this year, and what's most likely going to be a 1st-round pick next year, because as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy, the Colts will be in the playoffs. So that conditional 2nd-round pick should be a 1st-round pick. So a 1st-round pick and a 3rd-round pick for a guy that you wanted to get rid of, that was a locker room problem, that has an awful contract that you needed to get rid of, like, that's a win for that team. The reason I see it as a win for the Colts is because they've been searching for their QB ever since Andrew Luck retired. Jacoby Brissett, maybe they thought that he could be it if he really developed, but he wasn't. They brought in Philip Rivers for a year, and he worked out. He brought him to the playoffs, but then he retired, and he really wasn't it. But now they're bringing a pretty young guy in Wentz, so he's not really a 1-year thing like Philip Rivers was. He has 4 years left on his deal. The Colts needed this. They needed that QB that could be stable for them. Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate just a couple years ago before injuries really derailed his career. His offensive line was always hurt. His weapons always hurt. The Eagles were just a mess. So now going into Indianapolis, he has arguably the best offensive line in the league. He has arguably the best running game in the league. Their weapons could use work, but they're definitely better than what the Eagles had. So that's a win there for him. And for the Colts, like I said, you have that quarterback that you can count on for not just 1 year, but multiple years as well. As long as he stays healthy, I don't see why the Colts can't be one of the championship contenders in the league.
I want to ask a question to you two, and then Jurg, you could I guess rebound off what Dame says if you want to. Obviously, there's questions about Wentz's character and his locker room presence. Do the Colts have that type of culture where they don't accept that type of shit? Like, is it the type of culture or the type of organization? And I'm assuming so. You guys know more about it than I do. That kind of humbles these type of quarterbacks or these type of players that kind of coming with attitude problems? Like, are they the type to kind of like solve that?
I mean, throughout they look who their quarterbacks have been: Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. Like, those are guys who have been stable quarterbacks for their organization. So I haven't heard anything behind the scenes about Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck before they got there, whether they had character issues. But based off what we know, like, there haven't been any really problematic quarterbacks that they've had there. So I'm gonna go off it that they'll be fine and they'll work with Wentz and everything will be good.
Jurg?
Yeah, so to Dame's point, like, they've never had to worry about quarterbacks before, because even some of the guys, aside from Manning and Andrew Luck, like Jacoby Brissett, a lot of people don't realize he was a big guy in that locker room. Like, when Andrew Luck was there, Andrew Luck was kind of the silent leader. Jacoby Brissett was actually the guy, and that I don't know if it was a players only meeting because they were doing bad or just like or having a little skid, but Jacoby Brissett has actually been the more vocal quarterback there the last couple of years, even when Luck was there. So they've always had high character quarterbacks. And I feel like the thing is that when you've had veterans, like respected veterans in the past, like you think about some of the great guys they've had there: Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Dwight Freeney, and Robert Mathis. Like, all those guys understood what their roles were, and they buy into what the organization does. And I think the thing with Carson Wentz, like, I understand that it hasn't ended well, so we're going to say all this stuff. But when he first got benched for Jalen Hurts, his teammates weren't really saying a lot of bad things about him. Like, Fletcher Cox, I know it's just social media, so I'm not going to read too much into it. But like, if I'm not mistaken, Fletcher Cox liked to tweet or something on probably a tweet supporting Carson Wentz and what he was going through. Like, I don't think he's necessarily a bad locker room guy. He's just a different personality at the quarterback position. And I really do think it makes a big deal that he's returning to the coach that he's had the biggest success of his career with. I really do. I think if anyone there can help, it's the coach. And then you look at that defensive side of that ball, like Buckner and Leonard, for being good players, they're also good leaders on the defensive side of things. T.Y. Hilton's been there for a while. Hines and Jonathan Taylor are both, wise amongst their years. Like, they are respected kids in that locker room for how they work and how they handled it. Like, I don't think it'll be an issue because I think there's just too much positive there to outweigh any quote-unquote negative Wentz may bring. And I think going to a new environment, to a team that quote-unquote wanted him, I know it's a business, so like da-da-da sometimes, but I think in his mind, I think he will appreciate the fact that a team wanted him. So I think it'll go pretty well there. And hey, if there is an issue, all the Colts need to do is call in old number 18, Peyton Manning, and just give Carson Wentz a good talking to. Because Peyton Manning, he's done that to anyone who tried to step out of line when he was there, and they stepped right back in line once he spoke to him. So the Colts do have the kind of culture where they can make it work with Carson Wentz. They do.
Yeah. Just the thing is, like, I don't think Wentz is a character. It has a character problem either. I just feel like he didn't want to be benched. He thought he deserves to be a starter of that football team. He thought that all the problems that the Eagles had weren't because of him, and he just wasn't happy with not playing, especially after he was really good when they were healthy and the entire team was healthy. And they paid him all that money to be that franchise quarterback, and they just benched him for a guy that wasn't that impressive either. So, and especially did they draft him in the second round instead of getting Wentz some help.
Yeah. So
I don't really think that Wentz has a character issue or really a locker room problem. That's just what reports are saying.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that's going to be a problem in Indianapolis, to be honest.
Yeah, like you said, Dame, my bad, Chris, but as Dame said, like, as he should have a problem getting benched. Like, in professional sports, the highest pinnacle of physical combat and achievements, you need to have a drive, and ego, whatever you want to call it, to make it to that point. So it's like, I don't understand with people saying certain things about Wentz. I know none of us are saying, but like when people were saying, oh, Carson Wentz is kind of having a bad attitude about all this. What attitude do you want him to have? Like, he literally got benched. This is the guy that almost won MVP a couple years ago. This is the guy that I don't care what anyone says. He probably could have led them to the Super Bowl like Nick Foles did. Would they have won? Different story. But I think they could have gotten to the Super Bowl with how they destroyed Minnesota. You're telling me Nick Foles is a better quarterback? He can't beat Mitch Trubisky? For the love of it? Like, come on now. So yeah, like I never had an issue with Wentz. It's like I'd be pissed off too. Like if I got replaced on something, it's like, oh, okay, all right, I'm gonna show you why you that was a big mistake, and he has his chance now in Indy.
No, I mean I hear both your guys' sides. Yeah, I think it's a matter of change of scenery. I think it's a matter of going to a stable organization like Indiana. Like they know Wentz is going to be their quarterback going forward, and I think he knows he'll have a better offensive line. I think it'll work for both parties, right? It's that change of scenery. So maybe like the attitude, not really. So he does have like a bit of an ego, but like you guys are saying, rightfully so, because he does feel like he should be that guy. With the Colts, he is going to be that guy, right? Like there's not going to be like an identity crisis, right? There's not going to be like that cloud hovering over him like they had with Jalen Hurts, as like, oh, there's a little bit of pressure because if like you screw this up, or if we're not as successful, he's going to take your spot, right? I think with the Colts, they know he knows he's their quarterback. He's that guy, and he's that guy that could possibly, take that next step for them, So, and like Damon said, I think the Colts, they made it to the wild card round with Phillip Rivers, like on his last dying breath, right? And you're right. I think they could be title contenders, to be honest. So.
Yeah. They could have won that game. Like they could have legitimately beat Buffalo.
They could have. So yeah, I mean, look, that's more competition for the Chiefs now in the AFC. So, take that as you will. But yeah, any final closing thoughts, gentlemen?
Happy for Carson Wentz. Happy for Carson Wentz. That's all I could say.
All right. Okay. That's that. Now we move on to the NBA world, guys. Not a lot of news. So there's a lot of trade rumblings going on, but nothing, of course, has occurred. So we have decided to select a few players that we think are going to be on the move, of course. We'll keep it 2 or 3-ish, just in case we have options, just in case we have some repeats. But you know what? I'm going to start with Dame on this. Who's a player that you could see? Who's a player that you could see being moved before the trade deadline?
It's just kind of out of the box, but I think John Collins to the Warriors is an interesting move.
Ooh, okay.
Clearly the Warriors need some help if they really want to be a contender instead of being a 1-and-out in the playoffs. John Collins isn't like an old veteran player that's going to retire in a couple of years. He's a young budding star, so that fits into what the Warriors are trying to do in the post-Steph Draymond kind of era too. So he can help them out now, and he can help out in the future. It's rumored that the Hawks are looking for a first-round pick. So the Warriors this year have 2 first-round picks. They have the Minnesota pick if it lands outside the top 3, and they have their own pick. So they could easily just use their pick, maybe add a player. They could use their own pick instead of Minnesota pick, since the Minnesota pick will be higher. So use their own pick. You add maybe a player that you have, and you package that for John Collins. And now you really have something there with the Warriors. With James Wiseman, John Collins, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. And going forward, you could build around that front court of John Collins and James Wiseman. So that's a little interesting out-of-the-box move I think could work for both teams.
Yeah, so I actually did have John Collins as well, Dame. I'm surprised you had him to the Warriors, to be honest, because a team I think, and I'll give mine my guy in a second, but Jurg, I don't know what you could kind of, comment on what you think, but I think John Collins would be a very good addition to the Spurs.
They need everyone to the Spurs.
I mean that too, but also like they need their successor to LaMarcus Aldridge, right? And I think John Collins would be perfect in that system. The thing is, I don't know who the Spurs or the Warriors could kind of give up for John Collins. Like you said, the first round picks. I don't know if the Warriors think John Collins is that guy that's worth that Minnesota pick. Possibly. So, I mean, they could give up their own, but I don't know. It's like I didn't really hear rumblings about that because they may think they're fine with Draymond and Eric Pascal.
I didn't hear rumblings about it either. It was just my own idea.
Yeah, no, I mean I see that. I just I don't know how the fit would be because I think they really like Eric Pascal, but yeah, I don't know. Jerry, you could comment on those 2 suggestions that we had for John Collins, but for me, I have Lonzo Ball. Now, I don't necessarily know what team he may go to. I know there's rumors that the Bulls are interested in him, and he's interested in the Bulls. I don't necessarily see the fit, to be honest, because the Bulls have Kobe White, and they have Zach LaVine, and I think Zach LaVine isn't a point guard, but he is a guy that needs the ball in his hands, and Lonzo Ball is also someone that I think to be fully effective, he needs the ball in his hands. But they clearly see something. I don't know how the fit would be with him and Kobe White, so it's kind of weird to me. I was always pushing for Lonzo to go to the Knicks, but I think with the acquisition of Derrick Rose, that's not happening. I don't see him going to the Clippers. I could see Lonzo Ball getting traded, to be honest, because I think he's due for a payday. with the Pelicans. I don't know if they're going to want to pay him that. I think he should stay with the Pelicans, though, man. It's like the perfect fit for him, bro. I think with that system and the structure of that team and the identity, the young guys pushing up the tempo with Zion and Brandon Ingram, he's the perfect point guard for those two. So I think he should stay. I think he's going to get traded, but I think because there's just so much smoke with the Bulls, he's going to end up going to the Bulls. I don't necessarily know who the Bulls would trade, to be honest. Maybe Otto Porter Jr., but the contracts wouldn't match. I don't know. They might have to give up a pick for him. So if the Bulls think, because I'm pretty sure the Bulls draft pick is going to be high this year because I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. So it's going to be tricky, but I think he's just going to end up being traded. I'll just go with the Bulls just because there's a lot of smoke there. Jurg?
So, John Collins, I think you guys are spot on with. While there's not exact rumors like some of the other guys that we've heard the last couple of weeks, it's a telling thing that Atlanta did not sign him in the preseason, or even though it wasn't really preseason, but did not sign him to an extension when they could. And I don't know where talks are at this point, but I just don't see them offering him the contract that he may demand. I think both you guys have points to your destinations for him. I think John Collins would be a very interesting fit there in Golden State. I think it would kind of change things up to where there was spacing everywhere on the floor, to maybe Draymond becomes more of like a secondary option, maybe off. You can't just look at his contract. You have to look at what he does, and maybe him off the bench, Collins and Wiseman at the 4 and 5, Steph, Clay when he comes back, and Kelly Oubre, he can shoot. 3 of your 5 starters being able to shoot is not bad. So I see where Dame's thinking of there, and he's not worth the Minnesota pick at all. Nowhere near. The fact that they would even get Golden State's first-round pick back is actually a pretty good thing. So I think a first and a player that Atlanta would want. Maybe it is an Eric Pascal. So maybe, but at the same time, I also like the Spurs fit because at the very beginning of the season, I said LaMarcus Aldridge could have been a guy to potentially get moved, and I like the idea of Atlanta trading John Collins for him. That was actually a mock trade that I thought of like way back, like in like the first week of the season. So I think both of those are pretty realistic. I think you guys did great jobs when it came to those. For my first name, I'm gonna go with a little off the board. He hasn't been mentioned. I don't know if they'll move him, but I just think it would make sense. Ricky Rubio on the Minnesota Timberwolves. We know Minnesota is not going anywhere. They just happened to pick up Ricky Rubio in the offseason, and I think a move for him would be better. We saw him do pretty good with the Utah Jazz. He had a solid season with the Phoenix Suns. I think he was I think Ricky Rubio's presence helped Phoenix realize they need a playmaker to put alongside Booker, and then they just upgraded from Rubio to get the playmaking of Chris Paul plus his leadership and etc. But Ricky Rubio's not a bad player at all. He's a very solid point guard. And a team that comes to mind for me that I think should consider him is actually the Dallas Mavericks. I don't think anyone aside from Luka on that team is averaging over 3.5 assists per game. They need someone else to help create for other players. And Ricky Rubio could be that guy. And to me, it would probably take a Tim Hardaway Jr., or a Josh Richardson. I don't view either of those as a loss because both those guys, like you could replace their role. I think you could develop the defense decent enough, the team style of defense that Rick Carlisle is having them run to make up for losing Richardson, or in my opinion, maybe even trade Hardaway because Richardson could be a spot-up shooter for you in the corner. Like he's got to improve on the three-point shooting, but he can make a couple threes. Like he'll have his nights. And then Jalen Brunson can essentially be that guy where he could just create his own shot, and he doesn't always have to play make. Ricky Rubio would be a guy that I would like to see go to Dallas because I think Luka needs help on the playmaking end of things, and Ricky Rubio is an outstanding playmaker. So I have Ricky Rubio to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Tim Hardaway Jr. And probably they wouldn't need to attach much, maybe a second-round pick if they had to, but that's the deal that I have happening.
Yeah, so I actually like that trade right there, Jurgen. And I've always been a fan of Ricky Rubio. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NBA, and I think he's one of the top-tier playmakers in the NBA, like you said. I think you're right. I think if he goes to Dallas, it takes off a lot of pressure. It takes off pressure off Luka's hands in terms of just playmaking, right? And because he already gets most of the attentions of the defenses, and it would also be good for Porzingis. Rubio could find both of them, and we all know Mark Cuban loves his European players. But I think, to your point, if I'm the Mavericks, I would want to give up Josh Richardson first because I think Tim Hardaway, they're both inconsistent, but Tim Hardaway Jr., I think I could trust a little bit more with his shots, with his three-point shooting. But I like Josh Richardson's defense, right? But like you said, I think it's tough because Hardaway is up for a contract soon.
Yeah.
Right. I think he's expiring this offseason. And I don't know, Josh Richardson maybe too. But
no, he's got like another year or two because when Philly signed and traded him from Miami, I think there was like at least one more year. So I think he's on the books for next season.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think the Mavericks should trade Richardson first, but I think they're gonna get, if they were to trade, it might be Hardaway just because he's due for a contract. But I like the trade though. Yeah. So Jurg, your second guy.
Okay. So man, I have a lot of different names here that I could go with. I really don't want to steal anyone's here. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with another guy that is kind of off the board, off the radar. We're not really hearing too much about him. Buddy Hield on the Sacramento Kings. It was an issue for that organization to even get the contract negotiated with him. I think it's pretty obvious that there are issues with them in the past. Buddy got paid. He did get his contract, but at the same time, it wasn't an easy road to get there. And I think where Sacramento is right now, I think you could clearly tell that, look, as nice as Buddy Hield has been at times, he's not an end-all be-all player where it's like, we have to keep him. You cannot trade him. No, he's not that caliber of player in any way, shape, or form. If I had to pick untouchables on that team, it's De'Aaron Fox and it's Marvin Bagley. Those are the guys that are quote-unquote untouchable on that Sacramento Kings squad. So Buddy Hield, I think they could trade. A couple of teams that could potentially use him. The Toronto Raptors need another guy that can score consistently from the perimeter. Mm-hmm. I think that they would have the ability to put together a decent deal for Buddy Hield. Maybe like a future first-round pick, or like a protection or something on that. We've seen guys get traded for less. So I think like at least a first-round pick with some protection on it, some salary the other way too. I don't know how he's played this year for them, but the kid, Malachi Flynn, I haven't seen him for them a lot. So maybe you put him there and one of the other like a Norman Powell, because Powell's making $10 million a year. Like, I just think Toronto right now, they need some more scoring to really help out Fred VanVleet, because Siakam, he'll have his games where he puts up 20 and like 9, but then he'll have his games where he's not really as effective. Same with Kyle Lowry. Like, Kyle Lowry's still a great, playmaking, defensive leader, but, another bona fide score would really help on that squad. So I like Buddy Hield to Toronto. If not there, if they could find a way to get salaries to match up, and it would just have to be players and salary, to the Clippers. Again, team needs another guy who could create for themselves. He can do that. And Buddy Hield, I think he would obviously understand his role next to Paul George or Kawhi. So I got Buddy Hield. Again, like, this is a guy just like Rubio, just like John Collins for you guys, not necessarily real rumblings for him. But I think if someone came to Sacramento with the right offer, I think they would accept the deal.
One team I could see Buddy Hield going to, Orlando Magic, because I think you could trade Evan Fournier, who's like on expiring, and throw in Mo Bamba, because I don't know how they feel about Mo Bamba. He clearly hasn't panned out the way they thought he would.
Right.
And the Kings desperately needed like a center, like a long-term center.
They need a young one, yeah. Because, Chris, what I like about what you're saying, sorry to cut you off, but I like, if they were to actually make that deal, what I would really like about that is that Hassan Whiteside, who's on a 1-year cheap deal, they could easily move on from him either after this season or like trade him for a second-round pick at the deadline to a team that needs a guy like that. So like a deal like that would actually be nearly perfect for Sacramento, because you get that defensive big next to Marvin Bagley, who I know the situation happened, but what they drafted him? They drafted him second, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I don't think a little spat between the dads of two players is gonna force a team to trade a former second overall pick. Like, I know he hasn't played to that level, but you still invested that pick into him.
Yeah, you're right. But it's also the Sacramento Kings, so who knows? But yeah, I think the trade works out for both. You get that Mo Bamba gets a little fresh start. He would be the center going forward. He wouldn't be behind Nikola Vucevic. And I think the Magic, who are, again, the predominantly purgatory team in the NBA, they would have that extra score. Buddy Hield is better than Evan Fournier. And then I think when their point guard situation is really weird. So I think Buddy Hield, Aaron Gordon, Vucevic, Cole Anthony, it wouldn't push them over the top. But I think if they're going to be that borderline playoff team, I think Hield is the move to make. But yeah, that's that. I'll go to my guy next, and then we'll finish off with Damian. Okay, so the next guy I have is Should I say the obvious, guys?
You can if you want
Drummond?
to.
All right. Well, you want to do Drummond? Damien, did you have Drummond?
I thought that was my guess for you. We're gonna do. If
I had Drummond on the list. All right, we'll do Andre Drummond. So
I think Drummond is just a buyout. I didn't have much to say about him.
Okay, so this is kind of like a cop out, but I do have Andre Drummond because I think he's inevitably going to get moved, right? I don't know if he's going to get bought out. Because there's so many trade suitors. Like, I think it would be stupid for the Cavs, who are a rebuilding team, to buy him out, right? And of course, I don't want him to go to the Nets either, man. Like, that'd be too OP. So I know the Raptors are interested. I know the Celtics are interested. I don't trust the Celtics to make a move. Danny Ainge, he could talk all he wants. I don't think he's the guy that makes moves. But Drummond, I think, would but he would be serviceable for their lack of center depth. They didn't even have a center. Daniel Tyson, who isn't really the answer, to be honest. So it'd be a step up. I like the fit on the Raptors, and the Raptors are like known for being that gritty defensive team, and I think Drummond could honestly help. I'm trying to look at teams that definitely need a center. If I'm the Wizards, he's not a good fit, but he would definitely help them out defensively, I think. And the one thing that the Wizards need help with is defense. So if I'm the Wizards, I might be looking into that. I just don't know how the fit would be with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, especially Russell Westbrook, who is a drive-in kind of guy, and you would have Drummond kind of clogging up the lane. That's exactly why they traded Clint Capella from the Rockets. So I don't know about that. I like the fit with the Raptors or the Celtics. I just don't know if the team would make that move. Another team I could see kind of looking for him would be the Mavericks. It would take pressure off KP as being the number one rim protector, since he, of course, he's changed up his game a little bit, so he wants to play a little bit more safe. But yeah, I can see Drummond's, I think, leaving. I think for sure leaving. But yeah, Dame?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly on Drummond, I think he's going to get bought out, and I do think at the end of the day it's going to be the Nets, just because it's just been rumored that he wants to go there, and just a perfect fit because of the playing time and the opportunity that he has there to not only look good but also win. But my third player is JJ Redick. He hasn't been really rumored to this team because he's been rumored to like the East Coast, like the Nets, the Sixers, and the Knicks. But the team I think would be a good fit would be Dallas. Reason being is because before the season we did our NBA predictions and we're talking about the Mavericks, and I was talking about how big of a loss I think Seth Curry was to that team because of the shooting and the spacing that he gave them. So I think adding JJ Redick to that team really gives them maybe not Seth Curry's off the dribble shooting and playmaking, but he does give him that shooting and spreading on the floor for Luka and KP. So I think that would be a really interesting fit and a really good fit to try to make up for the loss of Curry that they had this offseason.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Surprisingly good one from Dame. All right, Dame, go with the third guy. Your final one.
Oh, I forgot. I had Lonzo as well. I had him to the Bulls just because that's the team that's been rumored the most about him. I know the Knicks have been rumored about him, but I don't want it to happen, so I'm not going to say it's going to happen. So I'm going to manifest him not coming to the Knicks, and I'm going to
manifest him coming to the Knicks. How about that? To counter off your shit.
No, doesn't work like that. Sorry, bud.
Okay. Go ahead.
So yeah, just the Bulls because I think that's the best fit for them. Yeah. Huh?
You're going with Lonzo?
I just said that. Do you listen?
I said Lonzo.
But I had the same players is what I'm trying to tell you.
He's adding on to your point. I
had Drummond, Lonzo, John Collins, and JJ Redick. I had 4. You took 2 of them. So
this is not my fault. They don't have more options.
This is your fault. It's your fault that you speak ahead of me. It's your fault you spoke ahead of me. But I gave a better explanation than you did, so there you go.
No, you didn't. You said the exact same points. We'll leave it up to our 4 viewers. Go ahead. Jurgen, you handle this. All right, Dame, whatever. Finish your stupid-ass thoughts. Go.
Overall, I have Drummond to the Nets as a buyout, not a trade, because I don't think any team has the contracts to match them in a trade, because I don't think the Celtics are doing jack shit. Then I have Lonzo to the Bulls, because that's the team that's been rumored most to him, and I refuse to manifest him to the Knicks. John Collins to the Warriors, because I just think it's a good fit for now and the future. And JJ Redick to Dallas, because I think he fits the void that Seth Curry left there.
Okay. Oh, man, that was interesting. My only point with Drummond is I do think someone will find a way to trade for him just because he's played so well this season. He's really brought his value and stock back up from when he was on Detroit to the point where Cleveland, like they traded a second-round pick and a couple filler players to get him. And now they have a chance to trade him to a team and get more back than they had to give away. So I think Cleveland's going to find a way to manufacture a deal there. In terms of my last player that I'm going to roll with here, I kind of feel bad if Chris has this guy, but at the same time, Chris kind of did that to Dame. So,
Yeah, who cares what Chris has?
All right. Okay.
All's fair in love and war if you happen to have this guy, Chris. But I got Victor Oladipo being traded again.
I don't have him.
Just because the thing is that when Houston got him in the deal, I think the mindset was always because he's on an expiring deal. I just don't see his future being on the Rockets, and I think it would behoove them to trade him and get something back for him. I think at this point you can get a team to make a deal for a Victor Oladipo and trade you a little something, maybe a nice rotational piece to help you out in the future. Maybe you could get a first round pick back for him if you're able to. I think there's a way they could flip him and get something back. In terms of teams I could go to him, I don't really buy it with this team, but just because they were mentioned on the list when I found Oladipo, the Mavericks were a team there. Could they potentially make that deal work? Maybe. I don't know if they have I don't know when their next first round pick is, so that's my stopping point there. The Memphis Grizzlies are a team that a lot of people are pointing towards. I think a Victor Oladipo, John Morant backcourt would be highly entertaining, to say the least. And of course, the Miami Heat have been linked to him for quite a while. I think for Miami, it could potentially work because they may only need to trade one first rounder, one of the way in the future first rounders that they actually have left to deal. And I think that could get the deal done this time compared to a year or two ago. And Miami also has some interesting young pieces that Houston could covet, such as Tyler Hero.
They're not giving up Tyler Hero, Jurgen.
I'm very close to flipping on. You just trade him for what you can at this point, but that's a story for another time. I'm really disappointed with him recently, but because I'm the Heat fan of the show, ladies and gentlemen. So Oladipo, I think those are three places he would love to go to. Memphis, I think playing with Ja would make him happy. Dallas, stay in Texas, sign an extension, no state tax. And Miami, I think he has a house there. He trains down there. He's close with Bam. No state tax again. To me, Dallas or Miami would be the move for Oladipo, likely in terms of long-term future and in terms of what he could get in the present as well. So I got Oladipo being moved.
I agree with a lot of teams you said. Memphis is interesting. I think I just don't think he's going to resign. I think a team that's going to make a move for him is definitely a team that he would be interested in resigning with.
For sure.
Right? So but I like the fit with the Grizzlies, to be honest. And the Grizzlies are doing so well with just homegrown talent anyway. I know the Knicks are also interested in Oladipo. I don't want that, to be honest. I just don't trust Oladipo. I don't trust him anymore. He's of all the big splash moves, he's the least interesting to me, and he's the least one I want just because I don't have faith in his star potential anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a knock on him, but it's just that's how injuries dictated that.
He would also be on the Knicks. He would kind of be forced to be the guy again, where I think if you send him to any of the teams that we mentioned, whether it be Dallas, Miami, or Memphis, and Dallas, he would be the second or third option on some nights because we know Luka's the number one. In Memphis, that's Ja's team. I think he would accept that. And in Miami, Jimmy Butler, Bam has played great in spurts this season. Again, second or third. If he went to the Knicks, he would have to play the guy again. And I don't know if that's the situation for him anymore.
And also the fit with him and Randall and RJ would be very redundant.
Right.
I just don't they all three of them need the ball, and I'm at a point where I am appreciating Randall to the fullest, but at some point we're going to have to transition to RJ being that guy, right? And if we just bring in Oladipo, then I think that stunts the growth of RJ. Well, my last guy, I think this is another cop out. I got Blake Griffin. The problem is I don't know which team he would go to.
Right.
I looked it up. He has one more year left after this year, so it's not that bad. But I don't know who's willing to give up crazy-ass assets, and you can't buy him out. This contract is too massive to be bought out.
Does he have a player option next year?
I don't know. I think he's Jurg, if you want to look that up.
I will.
Maybe. Okay. Before he kind of deteriorated, health-wise and just playing-wise, I really thought Denver, maybe. I thought he would be a good piece there, but it's difficult, and it really sucks to see his fall from grace, to be honest. Maybe the Nuggets, maybe I don't know. The Nuggets also seem like a team that I think I read a report that they want to kind of try and take that step forward with the talent they have right now. I don't necessarily agree with that ideology. I like the ideology. I don't necessarily agree with it because I don't think in the West, especially, Murray and Jokic, of course, are great, but you need that third guy, and obviously Griffin isn't that guy. But I'm just saying, in terms of like what the Nuggets are thinking, that lack of making like a big move is becoming too much of a Nuggets kind of thing. But maybe the Jazz. I don't know if the Jazz have any pieces or the cap space because they just re-signed Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert.
I don't know if they want to give up anything for, because here's the thing. I just checked it up. He has a player option for next year that's almost at $39 million. There is no way he's opting out of that. So it's like it would be for the rest of this year plus the $39 million next year. Like you got to have a lot of available cap space if you're going to make that move.
Like I'm thinking about it. Like, which team do you guys see him going to? Like realistically, like it's not. It has to be a team where for me, it's got to be a team that. Maybe a low market that doesn't have like shit to lose, to be honest. That I don't know. I don't see him going to the Grizzlies. Magic. No, that's not happening. Minnesota's a mess, right? Look, I'm looking at these small market teams. Like the Blazers have needed a 4 forever, but because like it would be their luck that they would trade for a 4, but then it's like the worst version of Blake Griffin.
Right.
So I don't know. I see him. I don't know what it is. I've seen like crazy shit happen in the NBA, but I see him getting traded. I just don't know for what. For the idea of it, I just see him getting traded. I don't know.
I'll let you guys end this. Like you and Dame end this because like this is just my thought with some of the teams you said. I think it would need to be a team where Blake is the third or fourth, particularly fourth option. Like honestly, Portland might work because it's Dame, it's CJ, and honestly, Yusuf Nurkic. As weird as it may sound to say, like I think that would be a fit because you already have those 3 guys there. If you just allow Blake to be the 4th guy, hey, just help our stars enforce only here and there when you need to, like that could actually be a fit. Like I don't know what you guys think. I actually think Portland wouldn't be the worst possible thing because I think it would be terrible for Blake to go to yet another downtrodden franchise and have to technically be the biggest name on there. I think a Portland would be a nice fit for him just because no one's bashing him, but it's like it's sad to see how far he has fallen, and I don't want the final years of his career, however many they are, I don't want him to be on a garbage team again. I actually want Portland to make this move now that you mentioned them, Chris. I do.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it too, I think it's the best fit for him, and he won't have to do that much. I think with the Pistons, he had to be kind of the guy, right? But because of their switch from like fringe playoff to rebuilding, he lost his place there. So yeah, I guess I'll go with the Blazers, to be honest. Dame, final thoughts?
Just looking at all these teams and thinking of what team you could go to, something interesting. How about OKC? He's from Oklahoma. He went to college there, and you know how OKC loves to take on bad contracts for a first-round pick. I don't think the Pistons are gonna ask for a pick for or an asset for Griffin. I think they're gonna have to attach an asset to get rid of the contract. So just an idea. I don't think it's gonna happen, but just an idea that Griffin is from there. OKC loves to take bad contracts or picks, so that could be an interesting fit if Pistons are willing to add that asset to them.
I agree with that. I just but the Pistons need all the picks they can get, to be honest. So their second round of this year is going to the Knicks, so they don't have that.
Who's really going to give an asset for Blake Griffin though?
That's what I know. That's what I'm saying. But right, like the way that OKC kind of operates. I just don't know if Detroit can oblige because they're not going to give their first rounder. That shit's going to be high as hell. So, I mean, I get it's hard. There's no wrong answers here. But, yeah, I mean, they're both good.
I have an idea to an extent on the trade. So,
go ahead.
When it comes to Portland, there could be some pieces that they give up in this deal. Not valuable pieces. Here's the thing. Not valuable pieces, but just guys they could give up to come close to filling the salary. Derrick Jones Jr. is making $9 million. Zach Collins is on an expiring deal at 5.4. I don't know if they'll re-sign him considering Nurkic is there. Rodney Hood's contract is not guaranteed for next season. Robert Covington, he can be moved anywhere, I feel like now. And a couple of the young guys that they have, like a Harry Giles, if Anthony Simons, I know he's played better for them, but if they don't like his progression for whatever reason, like that's an extra little bit. Like it'd be a tough move, but I think Portland could potentially do because they're not that over the cap space with their current roster, like they actually could absorb this deal while not giving up a true massive piece. Like again, just an idea.
No, I mean I think that really good ideas you have there. I think they do have assets. That they can necessarily give up. I don't think they're going to get rid of Covington because I think they gave up like 2 first-rounders for him. But yeah, Zach Collins, no point in re-signing him. He hasn't panned out. Derek Jones Jr., while he has played well, I think you're right. He's replaceable. And you could give up what's his name? Nas Little too, right? I like Nas Little a lot, but I don't know if he could develop into the player that he was touted out to be in high school and in college in a crowded area like Portland that already has Lillard and McCollum and Nurkic and Carmelo Anthony too. So yeah, I mean, I guess final answer will go with Portland. Dame, sorry, sucks, but that'll be that. Yeah. Good week this week, fellas. I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot more news next week. But for this week, great stuff. Thank you to everyone that has stayed with us for this full hour, longer than it should have been. But regardless, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Follow us on Instagram, SomeWhatSports, right, Jurgen?
Yes, sir.
Yep, yes, sir. You can follow us there. And yeah, till next time, peace, everyone.
Take care.